T.J. Hooker returns next week at this time. Now a special presentation.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners.
Terrificon, Connecticut's biggest Comic-Con, is back at the Mohegan Sun Expo Center in Uncasville, Connecticut on August 16th through the 18th. See your favorite stars from TV and film and shop for comic books, toys, and memorabilia. With top creators from Marvel and DC, costume contests with prizes, and so much more. Tickets on sale now at Terrificon.com.
Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Always happy to welcome Keith Champagne back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, my man. Absolutely. And we're here today to talk about Keith's Kickstarter. Now, here is the link, and it's already in the chat of YouTube. So if you want to, here's the long, URL for the stuff that Keith is offering and everything. But I just wanted to let you know that. And everybody's saying hello. Hello, Kari. Thank you for watching, as always. Kari's going to be at Terrificon along with me and Keith in just a couple of weeks.
He's the best.
And Chemdog saying hello. Good to see you, Chemdog. Hey, everybody, too, watching both on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks a lot. I was close to 5,000 subscribers, and I kind of put the call out when I was talking to Chris Burnham on Monday and said, hey, if you can push me over 5,000, thank you. And everybody did. So that's really nice. And it's, a little milestone as far as YouTube subscribers. The audio audience still bigger, but the YouTube audience continues to grow, and I appreciate the support. And really, as everybody knows, since COVID, I've been going video first and being able to have face-to-face conversations like we're going to have with Keith tonight. So thank you. Thank you very much. And Jeremy's saying hello. Hello, Jeremy. Nice to see you. This is great, man. Well, let's get into it, man. Now, you are in the midst of your second release for the title Jump.
Yeah.
And, you sent me a couple of fantastic covers. Remind people about the story behind Jump.
So we're putting out the second issue of Jump on Kickstarter right now. Like everyone else in the world, we're putting our books on Kickstarter. But, Jump is the story of a rookie hero. And it's his first night in the hero biz, out on the streets, going on patrol. Things go horribly awry, and he dies at the end of the first issue. He gets, destroyed, murdered, obliterated. There's no chance that he's alive. He's dead, 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 dead. And the trick of this book is that throughout the first issue, there are clues as to how he's going to come back to life. There are elements of the book that can be used, to bring him back to life. And so we have a challenge to the readers of the book that if they can piece together the puzzle and figure out how he comes back in the second issue, then they will win and become a character in the third issue, basically. So we call it the New Pain Challenge. It's, we're trying to match wits with our readers and see if they can figure out what we're up to. Nobody figured out the first issue cliffhanger. We had 18 or 19 people, I think, that submitted guesses. And there were some really smart ones, but nobody came close.
Okay.
So we'll see how they do with number 2, because number 2 is a much bigger, much larger cliffhanger. And you might say, well, if he dies in the first issue, how does it get even worse? But it gets a lot worse, for sure.
Very cool. Mike Coonrad says, hey, Keith and John, of course, I'm already backed the campaign, as I do with all New Pain crowdfunders. That's awesome. And Kari says, Keith will make you jump. Very good, man. Was that Chris? Yeah, Chris Cross, of course, back in the day. Come on, classic, good hip hop back in the day. And Chem Dog says it all sounds painful, which makes sense.
Sure.
It's new Paint Griver comics and stuff. Absolutely, man. So that's great that the story will continue. Again, how long is this first story?
I think it's going to go 4 issues. I don't want to jinx anything, but the campaign is almost funded. So as long as it funds, we'll do the 3rd issue. So it looks pretty good. We got 22 days left, I think. And we're only a few $100 shy of the funding goal. So not that, we'll cross that line and be able to do the 3rd issue. Because the thing is that, this book gets crazy in the 2nd issue. It's crazy in the 1st issue. It gets crazier, becomes One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest in the 3rd issue, like level crazy. And then who knows what's going to wrap up.
That's cool. And again, as you said, you're just over $400 short of your goal, and you got 3 weeks left. So that's great. I certainly hope Word Balloon people will become intrigued by this idea and follow this story. And I think that's great. Another thing that you seem to be offering, and tell me about it, is you've created a handbook or are creating a handbook of the universe.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm really only doing this for me because I've always loved the official Marvel handbooks from when I was a kid.
Sure.
So now that our little universe has enough characters to populate a book like this, we're pulling together our very first official handbook of the New Pain universe. So it's the kind of thing you get a lot of context of our characters. And hang on a second. Yeah, it gives a lot of additional context. Like that's a character from Jump right there. That's Amanda, and she's an alien warrior. And also Jump's girlfriend. That's a character from Daybreak. But we're also not only do you get to know these characters a little better that people have seen in the book so far, but we're debuting new characters that no one has met yet in this book. So people will get their first glimpse. At the team from a book called Punch, which stands for Pubescent Undercover Neurodiverse Cryptid Hunters.
That's cool. That's like a throwback to the 80s titles that came in the wake of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, certainly.
Totally. And that was the artist, Rich Stanke, on that book, who does a lot of coloring for New Pain. He saw an interview that I did where we talked about the Black Belt Hamster book that I wrote, and I mentioned, I really loved writing that book. It was fun to write something that was, funny. And so he texted me and he's like, why don't you just do your own? And I had never thought about it before, but I think it's kind of fun to do a throwback style book. No one's doing that kind of stuff anymore. And we definitely came up with our own spin on it. And I think people are going to really enjoy it when it comes out. The first issue is done. We're just waiting for it to have a chance to go on Kickstarter. I can only do so many in a given year.
You mentioned Daybreak, and I want to get into that for a minute, but Dennis Hoffman says he loved Daybreak. It was awesome. What's going on with your book with Neil Edwards, such an underrated talent?
Yeah, I love Neil. I love a good handbook too, Chem Dog. No, I love Neil. Neil's a great guy. He's a fantastic artist. I think, I've said before, he's, very much from the Brian Hitch school of comic book art. He worked with Brian for a bit when he was starting out. I think he's better than Brian, but maybe that's sacrilegious to say, but I adore his stuff. Neil and I have a few projects that we've been pitching around to different companies, and we'll see where they go. He's on board to do a New Pain book with me, a project called Big Time that he's working on the art for right now. And that'll be out. I think that'll probably be a March campaign next year. I haven't figured out the next year publishing plan yet, but I think that it's going to slide in right around then. But yeah, no, I can't say enough good things about if there are writers out there watching this and they need a great artist, fucking text Neil. Neil is the best, the best thing going, and no one really even notices how great he is.
How did you end up getting with Neil?
That's a good question. I think I started out inking Neil at DC, I remember doing somehow the Legion of Superheroes were involved, but I forget what book it was. But they needed someone to come in and clean up and do half an issue. And the editor was Brian Cunningham, and I remember him saying to me, like, "Listen, a lot of guys can't ink this guy. Like they I don't. And so if you can't do it, let me know." And I've never seen such beautiful pages to ink before. Practically, like, how could anyone not be able to ink this guy? Like, his stuff's amazing. So we clicked then, became Facebook friends, started messaging each other. I got to meet him in New York Con several years ago before the pandemic. Just a great guy, one of my favorite guys, and I'll work with him like forever.
That's cool. Let's go back to Jump and talk about your art partner for Jump.
Yeah, so the Jump book, it's laid out by a Brazilian artist named Carlos Reno. And I found him through our mutual agent, Joe Prado.
I love Joe.
Yeah, Joe. It was great. I'm gonna see Joe at Terrificon also.
Yeah, Joe's going to be at Terrificon too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. No, truly, he and Rod Rice, I think, are my two Brazilians that I know best of the group and everything. And yeah, I mean, Joe is just, he's an incredible artist and he's an incredible editor. Good for him, man.
Yeah, no, he's a real talent and and a good agent. So
that's cool. But
cool. Yeah, no, he hooked me up with Carlos. Hooked me up with two artists, and I really couldn't choose between them. And so I hired Carlos for Jump, and I hired this other artist for a book called The Defense that is slowly coming along. And kind of overextended myself financially, but I didn't want to let either one of those guys get away. So now I'm just playing catch up, I guess. But Carlos is great. He's super professional. I love his stuff. I'm doing the finished art in this book. So I
was going to ask, Keith, I wondered if you were like going in and doing the final, inks or finishes and stuff. Go on, please.
Yeah, no, he gives me nice, clean layouts, which is what I asked for. And then I go in and I put my 2 cents on it. So it's very much, a real collaboration as opposed to just like a straight ink job. And then, and I also letter the book and blah, 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 all that garbage. But no, I love working with Carlos. He's another guy, like he did the cover to the handbook for me, which I think came out great. And certainly was a lot of characters to handle. Yeah,
no, it looks great. Looks fantastic.
So like,
no,
I feel like I got to work with this guy now before he gets snapped up by the big two, and then I'll never see him again, So I better
I get it.
Be quick, get him going.
No, I don't blame you. That's great. Is Carlos able to? Is he? Are there shows down in Brazil where he's been showing the book as well and getting you guys some Brazilian sales?
I don't really know. I should probably send him some copies of the book for sure. It's the shipping down to Brazil. It's tricky, but I've given him digital copies, but I should probably get him some hard copies.
Yeah, I would imagine, especially. That's been kind of the recurring story talking to people doing Kickstarters, that it really is foreign postage that really could suck up a lot of the money.
Oh, for sure. I tell people right on the Kickstarter page, it's written, if you're an international reader, just get the PDF. Like, don't get the physical book. Why do you want to pay? It's $25 shipping to most of the world for a $10 comic book. And $10 is a lot just for a comic book. So you add the shipping on there, and you're looking at $35 sometimes. It's really not worth it. The PDF, it's you get it quick and easy, and you can read it, and then maybe order the trade off Amazon. A couple of years down the line.
Are you finding? Because again, man, you're a one man show on this in terms of putting these books, publishing these books and stuff, and the fact that you are charging more than a standard Marvel or DC comic. Not much more. Let's be honest. That price keeps going up and up. How many pages are the Jump issues?
The first issue was 24 story pages. This issue is 30 story pages. And then I'm hoping to add more content. If we hit some stretch goals, it'll become 38 story pages. But this issue, we actually, I used the inside back cover and the back cover as story pages. So you hit the last page inside, but then you keep going on those last two. So I try to cram
That's
as
great.
much value as I can into the book for people because I understand it's a lot of money.
No, I get it, man. Have you had feedback on Kickstarter from supporters or potential supporters going, $10 for a 20, under a standard size comic? And don't get me wrong, again, you're exceeding that 20 to 22 page limit that we'll see at DC and Marvel and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine that's got to be something that you probably kind of wrestled with because you do obviously want to be able to pay for the project. By the same token, you don't want to charge too much. So
Yeah.
I don't.
I try to keep our prices in line with the other books that I see on Kickstarter. And
Okay.
I think the Kickstarter readers are accustomed to paying a little bit more at this micro publishing level. I mean, if I could print, 200,000 copies of the book, there would be a bunch of discounts in the printing and the price would actually come down. But when you're doing small print runs of like 400 or 500 copies, unfortunately, you don't really catch them price breaks. This issue, we actually had to raise the price to 15 for the cover, for the main cover, because my printer has raised prices. So what I did was I lowered the prices, the equivalent value on the variants. Usually they're a little more. So everything is across the board, a straight price for any cover that they want.
Okay, so this is the main cover,
That's the main cover, yeah.
and then these variant covers
That's
are
the one
less.
I drew right there. That's my cover.
Excellent. I was going to ask. All right, so did Carlos do the first one?
Yeah, it's Carlos on that one, and then the shitty one, the big face, is mine.
It's not shitty. What? Who did 3?
That's Koi Pham,
Sure.
the great Koi Pham, who is such a nice guy.
Very cool. And number 4?
And that is the color artist, Rich Stanky, cranked out a variant for us.
Outstanding. That's great. Here's some comments about your books. First of all, Kari points out the quality of the pages is fantastic. The beautiful, thick, glossy pages in Daybreak were amazing. Also, she ordered your cover, which is awesome.
Oh, thank you.
And, absolutely. And then Mike has more questions about some of the other books in your library. While I'm excited for all new Pain books, the question I really want to know is, when are we going to get to see a sequel to The Switch? The people need some more Tom Nguyen art goodness out there.
Yeah. There is definitely another Switch book on the way. It's taken Tom so far 4 years
Wow.
to work on it, but it's going to be here. It was supposed to be our whole company, because Tom is also part of New Pain with me. He's my partner in this thing. Was supposed to launch with the new Switch book, and it wasn't ready, and Daybreak was ready at that time. So I shifted gears and I launched with Daybreak. So Daybreak has kind of become, our primary character, our most well-known character, which, isn't saying a lot because we're a small company, but she's our marquee character when it should have been, the Switch. But, Tom will get that book done eventually and we'll get it out. I'm anxious to get it out because I love those characters also. And people can see, many of the Switch characters are in the handbook too.
I was going to say it too. Daybreak, that's her on the far right, right?
Yeah, she's the one in the front there.
Yeah, with the glowing punch and everything, the glowing
Yeah.
fist. Absolutely. So, yeah, that's cool. And remind people of the story of the Switch.
Well, the Switch was the story of a supervillain. Her name is Electricia. And over the years of being on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, she's really come to despise herself. She hates what she has become in life. It definitely wasn't what, her father, who passed away when she was younger, would have wanted her to be. So she creates a second identity as a hero called the Switch and starts to fight crime instead of committing it. And that's like the missing piece that she has always needed in her life. But that, fighting the crime kind of brings her full circle into conflict with her villain friends, in that identity, in her hero identity, while her villain identity is being hunted by the superheroes. So it all kind of converges into a big schmoz, and people punch each other, and not everyone gets out alive.
Excellent, man. Very, very cool.
That's
if people want,
That's
Go
two
ahead.
things you can say about New Pain books. There's two consistent quality things to New Pain. Not everyone gets out alive, and there's usually a giant monkey in there somewhere.
like the custodian, for
Yeah, like
example.
Custodian, for sure.
And let's bring him back up. There he is. Absolutely, man.
That's my favorite character from Daybreak right there. I love that guy.
That's awesome. And yeah, remind people about Daybreaker and that story.
Yeah, so Daybreak, the easy way to pitch Daybreak to people is what if Superman was dying and the only person that could save him was Lex Luthor? Because, I mean, it's a good analogy because Daybreak is a solar-powered hero. And, you know, her arch nemesis, Doc Matter, who's also on the cover there, you know, he's a evil super genius. And they have to figure out a way to kind of, although they hate each other, have to figure out a way to work together. And there's a lot of double crossing and you know, our own mythology kind of building up in the book. But again, not everyone makes it out alive. And yeah, I guess that's the best way to pitch it. I think, you know, an analogy I use sometimes, like a book like Daybreak and The Jump, both, if they were movies, they'd have 100% ratings on Rotten Tomatoes at this point. Like, I've never met anyone that hasn't liked them. You know, so maybe people are being nice to my face when they see me, or what. But you know, it feels good that we're putting out these little books, and they're finding their audience, and people are really happy with them.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. What shows are we got? Terrificon, like I said, in just a couple of weeks. Just under 3 weeks, I'll see you there in Connecticut. Are you doing any other shows this year?
Yeah, I got Terrificon, like you said, and then I'm doing Baltimore this year with Tom. And Tom is also doing Terrificon with me.
Oh, good.
Tom and I have a show is either the week before or the week after South Dakota called SuperCon, which is a great show on that part of the country. Kind of like the Terrificon of that part of the country, I guess.
Wow.
And then I have one more in Massachusetts, I think in November.
Okay. All right. Excellent.
I think I might be forgetting one, but I think I have like 4 left for the year.
Fair enough. Okay. Were you in San Diego? I wasn't there. I certainly paid attention to the news.
Yeah, you know, the last time I was in San Diego, I think it was like 2006 or 2007. And
really, that far back? Okay.
Yeah, I stayed at my hotel most of the time because it was so crowded, and I just, you know, I couldn't deal with it. So I stopped going to San Diego at that point. You know, if someone wants to bring me out there, then I would probably suck it up and go. But I prefer like the medium-sized conventions where you have room to walk around a little bit and not bump into people all day.
No, I understand. And one of the reasons why I stopped going too was, and no disrespect to the programmers, Eddie Ibrahim is the main program director of San Diego. I really like the guy, and he's always been good to me. But they started putting the podcast panels at the library.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, cool. Oh man, I go because I was able to get creators to come to the podcast panel and talk about, you know, their interactions with podcasts and stuff. But to ask someone to not only leave the convention floor, but leave the whole convention facility altogether, and, you know, 15 minutes each way to walk to the library and stuff, even in reasonable crowds, it's like, that's just too much.
Yeah.
And it bummed me out. And I'm like, Eddie, please, give me a 9 or 10 o'clock convention panel at the center. And he's like, John, I'm sorry, it's a blanket decision. All the podcasts are at the library. And that's why I stopped doing the podcast panel out there. Because I'm like, well, you know, and again, we'd get a handful of people. We would get some people that were willing to go.
Sure.
But it's like, you still needed your badge. That was another thing. It's like, if they had made the programming, I mean, this would be one of my Sunday afternoon suggestions like they do every year at Comic-Con. I would make those library panels open to anyone, and that you wouldn't need a badge to be able to come in and sit down. Because as you know, there's so much other great entertainment happening outside the convention center that if you don't get a badge, there's so many great outdoor things happening, and even outdoor panels and star-studded outdoor panels. I mean, you're not hurting for entertainment, whether you're inside the convention center or not. But yeah, that would be my suggestion. But like I said, unfortunately, they're kind of inflexible when it comes to that stuff. And I'm like, well, then I'm going to stop doing the podcast panel because it's not worth it anymore. You know?
No, they put baby in a corner. You can't do that.
Very big baby, very big, heavy baby. But I'm losing weight, so I'm doing all right.
Yeah, great.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, we and I were talking off the air, just briefly noting the big headlines. of Comic-Con. Certainly the big Marvel panel on Saturday and the big reveal that Robert Downey will be Doctor Doom. And I trust the Russos. They've made great movies. So, but I won't deny that I'm not over the moon with the decision. Not that I don't like Robert Downey. I think he's amazing. It's just that it's like, well, he's already been there. He really established himself as Tony. I guess we'll see what the story's like. But to me, it's like, oh, I think it's a big enough celebrity world that they could have gotten somebody else to be as charismatic as our Robert Downey is to play Doom instead of Downey. Well, I don't know your thoughts of it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying, but I also, like you said, I kind of trust the Russos on this one, and I feel like to cast Robert Downey Jr., they have to have a plan. There's a way that they're going to make it work that we just don't know. But I'm sure it's going to make perfect sense by the time we get there in a couple of years. And in the meantime, having Robert Downey back in the Marvel Universe, that's a big gift for them because he was the face of that thing for a decade, Although I think it's debatable. Like, I feel like Captain America sort of became the heart of the Marvel Universe after,
Well, but also just like them in the last 25 years, they're the Batman and Superman of the Marvel Universe. They're the two big guns.
Yeah.
And that's how they've been positioned since the Quesada era of editing at Marvel and stuff. And I'm okay with that. And I agree with you because, I mean, I do think Evans is really important as well. I'm intrigued. And I'm really intrigued by next year's movies because I'm more excited about them than I have to admit I was, with very few exceptions. I was curious what they were going to do with the Inhumans. I thought it kind of, was just so. I really loved Shang-Chi. I thought that was the best of the Phase 4 or Phase 5 movies. But I got to admit, I mean, obviously the product's been kind of uneven. I also found it interesting that they finally did come back to Hall H because for the longest time, they were kind of saving their big announcements for the D23 show that's coming.
Right?
Yeah. And I guess they're holding back a little bit. Like, I think that's probably where we'll see Harrison Ford as the Red Hulk. Probably the first clips. I haven't seen any clips yet of him or screen caps.
I think there was just a little glimpse of him in the preview, wasn't there? I think the very end of the preview, the Red Hulk.
Maybe I missed that. I might have missed that. Because I watched a video of the panel, and I got to be honest, man. And people might know, and we'll see if they don't know, and they see me at Terrificon. I'm not a big fan of the cheerleader panels where the moderator is, come on, let's hear it for him, woo! And I always call them woo panels. Because to me, woo panels are like, woo, I'm here and I'm having a good time. Have a good time. That's fantastic. I don't want anyone to not have a good time. But me watching people screaming woo, and also they just, it's too big of a crowd. And of course, every actor is going to say something that's going to get a woo from the panel. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of them. I tried to watch a few of them. And I'm like, all right, that's enough. And I had to stop because I didn't feel like I was getting a lot of information. And I try to do information in my panels. And really, when we talk about characters, we're going to have a 60th anniversary Daredevil panel at Terrificon. That's going to be a lot of fun. We'll definitely do one with several of the writers that are involved on the big DC initiative coming up in the fall after Absolute Power. And we'll have Mark as well. We'll have Mark Waid, Scott Snyder, Philip Kennedy Johnson. I'm trying to remember who else is going to be there. Josh is not going to be there, Williamson. But, Jason Aaron. So we're going to have, good representation of a lot of the writers that are kind of changing the status quo of the DC universe and stuff. And we'll have as much information as they're able to give without spoiling, obviously. We want to read the stories when they happen. But, that's funny, too, that the DC Bullet for the movies was kind of one of the big announcements. I'm like, yeah, all right. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the last logo. I love the old retro logo, and I'm cool with that. So I don't know. Any thoughts on the Bullet coming back for DC?
Well, I love the DC Bullet. It warmed my heart to see it making a comeback after all this time. I feel like that's the genuine DC logo, and I'm glad that they're going to start using it again. It's just iconic, and it's simple, and it works, and it says DC right in the middle, DC. So I think they had some cool logos, in the past 10 years or whatever since they retired it, but nothing that really had that same level of beauty. So
Yeah.
God bless James Gunn for bringing that thing back, and I think it's like 100% positivity, in terms of reaction to that logo coming back. Yeah, see, the Bullet is such a classic.
Yeah, Chem Dog agrees with you and says it's a classic. Sure, it is. Yeah, I can appreciate that. Yeah, well, we'll see. I mean, again, Creature Commandos getting a lot of love, and we'll see how that animated series goes. I am excited for, and it's goddamn. Now that I think of it, as we're recording, Thursday, everybody, Amazon and Batman Cape Crusader starts. I'm very excited for that.
That's getting some good buzz too.
Absolutely, and man, I'm so glad. I didn't know that DeMatteis is one of the writers. Mark is doing a script, and I know Greg Rucka is doing a script, and I know that Brubaker is basically the writers, the showrunner from a writer's standpoint, the story editor. Yeah,
so basically, like with those guys in the mix, you're in for some quality Batman stories right there.
Yeah, man. No, and it's solo Batman. It's it's going to be Bruce by himself. It's kind of year one-ish in its presentation. The look, evokes memories of the Bruce Timm show and the best aspects, I think, of the Bruce Timm show from a visual standpoint. Yeah, I'm excited. I really am.
Yeah, I'm going to say I love the big ears on Batman on this one. They have those 1938 retro ears on them, which I think is great.
I agree. Oh yeah, man. No, I that I don't know if you did any stories and I forget what the name of the status quo was for DC that Josh set up before this new one that's coming up. And they had those great crossover stories where it would be a team of different alternate universe versions of the heroes. And it was like Silver Age Superboy with 1939 Batman.
That's
and
funny.
it was. Oh yeah. And I forget who else was on the team, but I was very excited to see all that happen and stuff. So that made me laugh. Mike Coonrad says they never should have gotten rid of the DC Bullet logo. Yeah, I agree with that too. I mean, when they were making the change, it's like, all right, if you think you need to, but there is something to be. I mean, there's a reason why Coke hasn't changed its logo in over 100 years.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I always feel like if you're going to change something, replace it with something better. And the logos that they brought on after that, they were nice, but they weren't better. So if they had a home run logo in that mix, then it probably would have been okay. But nothing topped the Bullet to me.
I hear you, man. God, I remember that first time seeing the Bullet, and it was when the Dollar comics were brand new and Superman Family, with that great shot of it was Clark, Lois, Jimmy, and Lois. Or no, I forget. I think Krypto or Supergirl might have been the fourth character. But yeah, in fact, it reminded me that another guy who's going to be at Terrificon, Paul Kupperberg, that was where his first DC stuff was showing up. So I think that was cool. So yeah, a lot of our friends are going to be at Terrificon. I think we're going to have a good time, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great show. I mean, they have like the show organizer Mitch. He really packs it full of talent. But a lot of the people that he has from Connecticut, like myself, Jerry Ordway, Paul Kupperberg, a few other guys, I really only see them at Terrificon. So it's, I get to see some of my favorite people that just live an hour away from me. It takes this convention for me to get in front of them. So, like, I haven't seen Paul in a year since last year's Terrificon. I haven't seen Jerry, the same way. So it'll be nice.
Yeah, me neither.
I'll bring Jerry a donut. He's a big donut guy.
That's good to know. That's hilarious, man. Have you been watching?
He likes the cake donuts. He doesn't like the fluffy donuts.
Oh, good to know. Wow. There you go, man. Yeah, I'm more of a cake donut guy myself when I eat donuts. I'm trying to stay away from the donuts right now. Trying to lose that Homer Simpson shape of my body. It's a struggle, but we're getting there. The have you been watching The Boys that just wrapped up obviously a few weeks ago?
Yeah, I watched it. I don't love The Boys.
No,
I find it watchable. I love Homelander, and I think the actor that plays Homelander should get an award for Homelander because he's, that's such a calibrated performance. Like you really see the emotion running through this character, like the conflicting emotions. It's great. It's one of the best performances on TV. But I feel like The Boys has fallen into the trap of trying to outdo themselves every season. Like this year they had the guy who was a human centipede with himself. And it's almost like, how shocking can we get it? Like, what can we do to make it even more shocking? How do we top ourselves? And which is fine. It's funny and it's very watchable. But I don't think it's, going to stand the test of time as one of the great TV shows. It's not The Sopranos of, superhero shows or anything.
Oh, that's really interesting, Keith, because I kind of think in a different way, the way the Deadpool movies have owned R-rated movies for superheroes and stuff, I really think the Boys is distinct. The shock value, I got to tell you, it's literally the only streaming show that I watch where I go like this when something big happens, whether it's a head exploding or something graphically sexual or whatever. And I mean, they get me every time. They lull me into whatever sense of security, and then all of a sudden, boom. And it's also like you said, Anthony Starr. My God, that's Homelander. Those eyes, and he can just really just his eyes connotate, a psychotic moment, but he's barely keeping it under control. But behind those eyes right now, my God, there's just nothing but lightning bolts in that brain as he's processing whatever's pissing him off at the moment. And I don't know, did you watch his other show? It was on Cinemax, Banshee?
Banshee is the best show of all the shows, right?
I am so with you, Keith. I love that show. And he had a different but still intensity when he was doing Banshee than what he does as Homelander in The Boys. And then I just saw, literally last week, I think, because I'm like, man, I've never really seen him sit down and be interviewed by anybody. And he was on with Seth Meyers. I don't remember if it was this season or last season. And they pretty much focused on The Boys. Seth mentioned Banshee in the intro. But again, it's like that guy is a hell of an actor, because whatever his talk show demeanor was beyond. I wasn't expecting an arrogant Homelander talking to Seth Meyers when I saw him, but he seems incredibly down to earth and really like a guy that enjoys laughing at himself and at life. I was stunned. It was a completely different person, and that's the only interview I've been able to find of his by himself. I know they did a big group interview at San Diego and stuff.
Yeah. I know several people, I'm sure you do too, that have met him at different conventions over the past few years. And everyone says he's like a super nice, like really genuine guy.
That's awesome.
So a great actor, because he definitely is not super nice in the show. Hey, John, give me 1 second, okay? My cat is trapped in the office with me. I think it's got to go use a litter box. Let me just
okay, yeah, no worries. All right, as Keith walks away, I'll open it up. If anyone has observations that they want to talk about regarding Comic-Con, we could do that as well in the final minutes of our talk here. But yeah, I also, again, Mike, there's so much that's starting up. Interesting. Here, Mike has a comment on The Boys, and Mike says it has the problem of most adaptations of comic books by going too far from the source material. The Boys comics are stellar, but it's written by Garth Ennis, so of course it's awesome. I'll slightly disagree, Mike, because I think it allows us to be open to surprises on the TV show. I think that was, I'm one of those few people that actually liked Zack Snyder's Watchmen movie, and people are like, well, yeah, well, there you go, man. And it was some complaints were, well, it's too literal of an adaptation. Now that said, I really enjoyed the sequel series that Damon Lindelof made for HBO, and I give it, because that's a tall order. How do you follow up Watchmen? And I found, on balance, that show to be quite good. There are little things that, for whatever reason, I didn't click with me, but for the most part, I thought it was amazing.
Yeah, no, I love the Watchmen TV show. I think that people have said it smarter than I can say it, but he took the central themes of Watchmen and then kind of transposed them into a different generation. But with enough of the original characters to still appeal to the longtime fans. But it's very smart television, and Jean Smart comes into that show. Speaking of Smart, and she comes in like a wrecking ball as Lori, and that's when the show for me really came to life. The first 2 episodes, if I remember right, were interesting. There was some world building, and then Jean Smart shows up, and it's like, let's put this thing into high gear right now. And she's fantastic.
The one-way conversation she had with John, I thought was amazing. And yeah, man, no, I'm with you. And truly, 21st century Jean Smart. I mean, I've always been a fan, going back to Designing Women and that Robert Wool movie that he made, Mistress. I think she's incredible in that movie as well. And she's great on Hacks. Her Max
she's great in Hacks.
TV series is excellent. But you're right, man, because I didn't even know what to expect. And when it's like, oh my God, Jean Smart is Silk Spectre, that's fantastic. And she was just so great as this former hero. And you could really see the through line of where Lori starts in Watchmen and where she is in the sequel series. It's really, I think she's a brilliant actress that is vastly underrated, if just not talked about as much as she should, because she's really, really incredible. Go ahead.
I was going to say she's like Kate Champagne of movies, basically. Brilliant.
Vastly underrated. Should be talked about more. Absolutely, man. Very true.
I heard some trivia. I don't know if it's true or not, that the first person they offered that role to, Silk Spectre, was Sigourney Weaver. And Sigourney Weaver turned it down, and then they went to Jean Smart. But what a different show that is with Sigourney Weaver in that role, too.
Oh, I agree. And she's obviously, managed to continue to be an amazing actor as well, Sigourney Weaver, no question. Now, first I want to get to Ken Dog, who says regarding San Diego, he's looking forward to the new Dexter series coming out. Cool.
Yeah, isn't Dexter dead though?
Well, that's where I'm confused as well. So I don't know if it's going to be flashbacks or Dexter as narrator. I don't really know how it's going to work. I really don't know. So I guess we'll see. David wants to know if you ever worked with Mike Paraback.
I did. If you did, it's what a random name to bring up, David. But I did work with Mike Paraback. My very first professional work for Marvel, the first thing they ever gave me back in like 1993 or something like that, was a Mike Paraback cover for X-Men. It was a reprint book, X-Men, like the Hidden Years or something like that. Not Unlimited. I think it was the Hidden Years.
Was that the John Byrne series?
No, it was. They were reprinting the original X-Men stuff from issue 1 on, and slapping new covers on there. So I remember, I think like Paraback and Sienkiewicz did like the cover to number 1. And then for whatever reason, they were like, hey, let's give this New Kid Champagne a shot. And I'm no Sienkiewicz. Sorry to say, I wish I was. But they gave me Mike Paraback's cover. And then they gave me a second cover over Paraback the next month. So I got to work with him twice. Talked to him on the phone one time. He was super nice, very nice to me. I don't think he knew who I was, but he was really nice to me. And then unfortunately he passed away. But he was fun to ink. I didn't really know what I was doing at that time, but I faked it well enough, I guess, and he didn't seem to mind. So long story short, yes, I worked with him.
Well, David says he's one of his favorite artists of all time, and he thought you had inked with him. He said you guys did a really great job together.
Oh, so thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Am I remembering right? Wasn't Paraback a Justice Society artist as well?
Yeah. Before I was ever on JS.
Right. Oh no, I realize that, but yeah, that early '90s Justice Society when they came back from 0 Hour, I believe that was their. That was Mike's work. Yeah.
Yep.
No, that was good stuff, man. Ken Dog explains what's going on with Dexter. He says there are 2 Dexter series coming out. One is his younger days, and the other is after the last series. Oh, there you go.
So he can't be dead, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
He looks pretty dead in the photo to me, but
I'm very confused by Showtime, and again, I'm glad that they're still around. They exist, but the fact that they kind of dropped their own streaming and merged with Paramount Plus, and I suppose that's kind of in the same move that Max did with HBO Max and everything else. But But yeah, I'm almost like, well, is Paramount going? Is Showtime going away? So I'm glad, because I think there's a lot of excellent original series that are coming out of Showtime, and I can't blame them for going back into the Dexter well. But yeah, I was confused by that. Oh, this is funny. Mike says, and I don't know I forget how big of a Star Trek fan you may be, but he says he anxiously awaits for my opinion on the Star Trek announcements from San Diego on the next Trek Watch gathering. It's going to be hard to herd the cats for the next Trek Watch gathering, because Mitch is busy organizing Terrificon. Franco is back, but now this week, Wayne is in Vegas for the big Star Trek convention in Vegas and stuff. So it might be a minute for us to all to get together. But I'll tell you something in a second. First of all, again, ChemDoc following up and says Michael C. Hall is voicing his younger self's inner voice. That makes sense, and that's what I assumed was going on with that show. So there you go. But regarding Star Trek, first of all, Keith, are you a Star Trek watcher of new Star Trek?
Oh yeah, I love Star Trek.
Are you aware of the new announcements from San Diego?
The only thing I saw coming out of San Diego was like a 5-minute clip with Pike becoming a Vulcan.
Yeah.
Which looked fun to me. It was weird, but that show, takes some big swings, and I love it.
Well, and that's awesome. And again, I don't mean to harsh your enjoyment of it, but I have to admit that I just hate the fact that they are leaning so much on these gimmick episodes, especially given that they only have 10 episodes a season. And further, body swapping, we got it in the first season with Spock and T'Pring, and they switched bodies. And then it wasn't a body swap per se, but you had that episode last year where Spock was suddenly human. And it's just like, okay, I think you've hit this trope enough. And further, it really bothers me because and again, sorry, kids, I don't mean to shit in the punch bowl and spoil everybody's fun, but it leans more towards fantasy than science fiction, that an injection will change you into a Vulcan, because as it's been very clearly explained through 50 plus years of Star Trek, Vulcans have different physiology than humans, but also their attitude towards emotions and logic is a learned experience. It's not in their DNA. You can't get an here. Forgive the politics, everybody, but you can't get an injection and suddenly become a Kamala Harris fan or a Trump fan. That's not how it works. It's behavior. It's experience. And while it's funny to see Anson Mount with a hairdo that looks like Kid from Kid and Play and the
His
house
hair
party.
was higher than normal in that clip.
That's a good 90s Arsenio Hall sort of hairdo. Absolutely. But that said, it just was too silly for me. And I'm just like, okay. And it's like, well, all right. So there, at least we know 1 out of 9, they're doing something wacky. And they're so, and again, I get it, because there is a portion of the audience that enjoys what they're doing. They enjoyed the musical episode, that they're just so proud of deviating from standard Trek. And it's like, I just want you to do a few more. I really felt there were only 3 episodes in the second season that I really, really enjoyed. And otherwise, I thought they were either telling me their politics first, which I mostly agree with, but it's just like, well, it should be this way as far as the editorial line. And it's like, Star Trek used to make you think about both sides, not just tell you what to think. And I really feel like, unfortunately, all modern new Trek really falls into that trap. By the way, I don't know if you watch Prodigy, but Prodigy is incredibly great.
I have not Prodigy.
It's the best and most traditional Star Trek show being made. And I've grown to like Lower Decks, and I do think Lower Decks has gotten progressively smarter and better beyond its first season. And I appreciate the humor of Lower Decks much more now than I did in that first season, because they've also taken Mariner down a notch or two, and she isn't the know-it-all that she was in the first, and the solution everything in the first season. And it's like, and also just like the nerds of Lower Decks were the other three characters, and it's like, hey, I'd love to have a menial job on a starship, and it's like, these guys, really love it. They're like doing the equivalent of like stocking shelves at a grocery store, and it's like, yeah, but they're on Star Trek, man. Are you kidding? I'd be thrilled to be on that ship doing nothing. I think that'd be great. So I don't know how you feel about Lower Decks.
I haven't watched a ton of it. I mean, I enjoyed the crossover episode in the last season of Strange New Worlds. I thought that worked out pretty well. But I've only seen a couple episodes, so I'm not really the authority on it. I tend to, I watch Star Trek casually, like with the Pike show. I like when they take chances, like the musical episode. And I'm not saying it's a great episode, but I like to see them try new things instead of always, falling back on the same tropes.
Well, and I mean, I'm all for stretching the Star Trek universe beyond even a ship show, and like the way Deep Space Nine, I think, handled things and came at it from a different angle, instead of just pure exploration and stuff. And we learned more about the galaxy and the Alpha Quadrant and everything. I would love to see a straight up Starfleet medical show. I would love to see a Star Trek, seeing the way the laws of the Federation work and seeing a show like that. So, I mean, I do think there are areas that I would like to see the franchise stretch, but I still want it to be a drama and an action drama. And like I said, these parody gimmick episodes, I'm like, well, you're playing at Star Trek. And I mean, it started in the first season when La'an and Number One were playing Enterprise Bingo. And it's like, oh, shut up. Tell me more about these characters. They've had moments where we've learned a little bit more about their backstories, but that's another thing with New Trek, and I would say it was more of a complaint about Discovery in general, and we know a little bit more with Strange New Worlds. But let me have a different M'Benga episode beyond him maybe killing or maybe not killing a Klingon. And by the way, I think that was the best episode of last season, the war episode and the flashbacks that he and Chapel were facing.
M'Benga's a badass for sure.
Well, and I even liked it then when they were all on shore leave, the body switch episode with Spock and T'Pring, and M'Benga's out fly fishing or doing something else, and it's like we're getting to know these people beyond their duties on the ship and everything, and it's like, no, there's room for that too. I don't know, and also, as I've said a million times, I hate the way they treat Spock. They treat Spock like he's a freshman in a new high school, and none of the other kids, he doesn't know any of the other kids. And I'm sorry, it's like, well, I think he learned a lot more about being a human being and how to interact with humans well before he stepped foot on the Enterprise. I don't agree with that premise. And I understand that allows them to, well, he's not the Spock we know yet. Give him a chance to grow. And the same thing with James Kirk. I'm sorry, I have nothing against the actor first one.
I don't like their Kirk. I don't like their Kirk on that show. He doesn't.
They don't get him at all. They really don't get him at all.
And I know what they're saying, like he's going to evolve into the Kirk, of the Enterprise years, but yeah, and it doesn't really play for me.
No, man. I as I've said on other shows, I have a feeling Cadet Kirk and Ensign Kirk would do something or say something that would make the upper officers go, "We got to watch that guy. That guy's going places." And I've yet to see any of that on Star Trek, on Strange New Worlds. So yeah, I don't know, man. Oh, that's funny. Keith, or rather, Mike apologizes for turning this into an impromptu Trek Watch episode. Oh, no, I was going to get my thoughts out sooner or later.
I would like to see a Trek show that's kind of like Andor, where it takes things down to like a really granular level of how that world works.
Yep.
I think that would be interesting to really explore it.
I'm absolutely with you, and yeah, what's it like to be a citizen in the Federation? What's life like? Sure. And I know they announced a live action show that Tawny Newson, the head of the lead in Lower Decks, Beckett is going to co-write and co-create it's like a live action show that's going to be on. They said on a pleasure planet, so I'm not sure if that means Risa or another planet. But yeah, I don't. And they discover that they are being shot for a reality TV show. It's a very out there premise, I guess much like Lower Decks, if you're going to make a whole show like that and make a humor show, whatever, it cracks me up that again, and also we learned a little bit more about Starfleet Academy. I'm excited that Robert Picardo is going to be part of the mix. I think that's great. I love his character. He's on Prodigy. I don't think that's much of a spoiler, but is fantastic on Prodigy as well. And given that it's a hologram and can be 1,000 years in the future without blinking. So everyone wants to know if they're going to tie into, I don't know if you remember that Voyager episode called Living Witness, where it's like 700 years past Voyager's time. And this alien race discovers the Doctor's emitter and is able to reactivate him. And there are historians that are trying to extrapolate what Voyager was. And they get a lot wrong. And then the Doctor's there to kind of defend Voyager and their purpose and everything. So I don't know if that's going to, tie into that or not. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, that's funny. Mike suggests that you pitch that idea, Keith, to IDW because they just renewed the Trek license for another 5 years. Would you ever want to write Star Trek?
Probably. I mean, I feel like I'd piss you off if I wrote it, John, because I think you're very passionate about your Trek.
Can't
But,
help it, man.
I'm sure if I thought about it, I could come up with some kind of stories. I'm surprised, I didn't even know IDW was still publishing, so I'm surprised that they got the license again.
I understand. Yeah, they've had a lot of interesting financial woes, and I want them to survive because I do think a lot of their output and a lot of the people that work for them are great people. And I wish them no ill as a company, but you're right. I was kind of wondering about that myself. Yeah, where do you see everything going right now, Keith? Because there are a lot of people that see the glass as half empty as far as the comic book business.
I think for the first time in my career, and I talked about this last night on a different podcast, my glass is leaning towards the half empty part of, and only because I'm very concerned about AI. And I think that in a couple of years, it's going to really present a problem to the creatives in this industry, I think part of the purpose of AI is that it's intended to democratize creativity. Everyone will have a level playing field with that tool, using it to their advantage. And I don't think that's right, to be honest with you. I think that, to become professional at any field, you need to work at it. It takes a lot of sacrifice and blood and tears to get good at our jobs. The point I made last night when I was talking about this was that, like, right now when you're playing with an AI, an art generator, you put in some prompts and you don't really know what you're going to get back. It's kind of like shooting fish in a barrel. It's going to spit out what it spits out. But I think a couple of years down the line, when you can work with the AI to edit that image that it spits out, and to change the angle or bring it more in line with what you really want, that's going to be a problem for a lot of people that do this for a living. And also, the point I made last night too is if you can train an AI on like 1,000 issues of Superman, then why do you need to hire a Superman writer anymore? Because they just recycle everything anyway every 5 years. So save some money and just have the AI create a 12-issue run. Oh, hey, write Jeff Johns Superman for 12 issues. And then,
Yeah. But that's the point that I think you're absolutely right is the danger. But I also think is the thing that people are the big boys that want to include AI in their mix of how to make comics. It's the redundancy that is really going to dumb down the product and make it very ordinary. And I always keep saying, I hear you from an art standpoint, and certainly as they maybe are able to refine it, it might become more of a dangerous challenge. But also from a writing standpoint, and I've said this to guys like Brian Azzarello and other writers that I think have found unique things about the character they're writing that aren't your typical Superman story or Batman story or whatever. And I felt that way about Brian's story that he did with Jim Lee for Tomorrow. And he really had that crisis of faith sub-storyline of Superman going to the priest and going, I'm just having doubts and everything. And it's those kind of idiosyncrasies in character that I think make stories distinct. And it's, I always lean on Bendis's comment to me that, yeah, we've seen Iron Man and Doctor Doom, fist fight each other a million times in stories. What about the conversations? What do they know about each other that makes for, an interesting exchange? And I think the better writers tap into the subtext of some of these characters and go beyond the obvious and find a new thing to look at. I don't know if AI is able to create the Court of Owls the way that Scott Snyder did for the Batman mythos, and how interesting that's become part of Gotham history now. Things like that. So that's where I do think the difference is. And then also, thank God, and I'm really glad you're doing this with your own stuff and everything. I'm glad that things have opened up, and that we've seen a rise in creator-owned books, and that there's not just one way to do it. Kickstarter has been amazing. There are other platforms as well that you can use to do it. I think digital continues to be, and digital first continues to be, an interesting thing. So yeah, I'm glad to see that there are enough self-starters out there like yourself and Tom, or rather Tom or Dustin. Which McGuinn is it? It's Tom. It is Tom. Excuse me, Tom. I apologize. But no, I'm really glad that you guys, are taking that initiative with the books that you're putting out in the new Pain universe. So, but I hear what you're saying, and I don't blame you for being a little concerned.
Yeah, I don't think it's an immediate threat, but I think 3 to 5 years down the line max, it's going to really shift the paradigm of this industry in favor of the bean counters who want to save money, and it's a lot cheaper to have a computer do it for free, for sure.
No, you're right. You're right, and it's changing the nature of movies and television as well. So yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. All right. On that depressing note, we'll remind everybody that we got about 3 weeks left in Keith's Kickstarter for the second issue of Jump, and you can get the variant covers here, depending on which one you want to order, which is great. And then, is it a stretch goal for the handbook?
No, I mean the handbook is part of the campaign. It's a 2-in-1 campaign, so both books are going to be produced. The stretch goals will add more character entries to the handbook or add more pages to the Jump issue, a backup story. Yeah, so no, the handbook is not a stretch goal. It's an actual, real thing. And, the rewards, we try to stack the rewards and make them interesting. We have, the comics and the original art. There's also like a jigsaw puzzle based on one of the covers, a 1,000-piece puzzle people can get. And the rewards go all the way down to we have a reward here. I doubt anyone's going to pick it up because it's pricey. You got to be a high roller for this one. But for a certain amount of money, we're going to make you your own comic. We're going to make you your own Jump comic. And the backer will get every page of original art. And then we'll do a limited print run, 100 copies that will go to that backer. And that's it. That's never going to be reprinted. It's a ratio 1-to-1 comic, so limited that the only person that's going to have it is that one person that backed it.
So are they going to be in the comic as well, or how
they want to be, for sure? I can add them to the comic.
Oh, so they even have some say as to what's going to be inside the comic.
Yeah, I can add them as characters in the comic. We can do anything we want to do, but the whole point is it's an exclusive comic that's only going to be made for that one person, and it's never going to be reprinted, never going to be seen by anybody else unless that person wants to show it around, obviously. But they're going to have the only 100 copies in existence. I'm not going to have a copy. No one else is going to have a copy of that book. It's, something different. We're trying just, see if it sticks.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm trying to find, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not cheap, kids, but you'll see it. Your own exclusive Jump comic book, and full details on the Kickstarter page for Keith's campaign. His champagne campaign, if you will.
A champagne campaign. A new pain champagne campaign.
Absolutely. Dude, good to see you. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks at Terrificon.
Yeah, definitely come by my table. We'll chop it up a bit more.
Oh, 100%. Definitely, man.
You're going to be super rich by the time you get to the show. You're losing so much weight. You're just going to be walking around.
Yeah, I give me another year. Give me another year. Oh, Kari, we can't wait to see you either. You're going to be at Terrificon as well. Absolutely. So that's great. No, thanks, man. Tomorrow afternoon, during American hours, I'm going to talk to my buddy Owen McCauley from Dublin Owen is doing a lot of really cool stuff in Dublin. He has his own school for animation and comic books art as well. And he's also one of the principal organizers of the Dublin Comic-Con, which I was going to be going to right after Terrificon, but things on a personal level have kept me from going to Dublin this year, but I will be going next year. But he's got a great lineup of celebrities coming to Dublin Comic-Con, both comic book people and other pop culture celebrities as well. So I hope everyone will check that out tomorrow afternoon. And also we'll talk Zorro. And also he... for his Lightning Comics publishing imprint, he got the license to King Features. And I'm not sure if he's just reprinting old comic strips, but I saw, in the promo ad that he had for it, the Phantom, Popeye, and Flash Gordon, among others, were in there. I think Mandrake was in there too. So yeah, I assume that it's slightly different than the Mad Cave license that's happening here in America. But I'm always intrigued by foreign publishers that are republishing American comics, or even just taking a character and doing them themselves. All that will be part of the conversation tomorrow with Owen. So I hope you'll all join us, and we'll usher in August together. So I hope you'll join us then. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.